Tony has been, I've met you maybe 5 years ago, and you have taught me many things. I've learned a lot about North County that I had no idea of, which I truly appreciate. After a long career in the fire department, Marine Corps, musician. He's done a little bit of everything, but I think one of the things that we are most appreciative of is your depth of knowledge about the local history, Freetown, your familial connections to how Anne Arundel became the place it is. And we look forward to hearing your presentation. So without further ado, thank you.
I kind of always start off with this, first giving honor to God. I'm here not because I plan to be here. I'm here because someone was praying for me. And I say that because of a time in my life when I was going to take my life. Because I didn't believe I had any value. I didn't believe that I needed to be around. Many times you look at a person on the outside and you see them and think, well, they got it together. When in fact, they're struggling worse than you. And they need you more than they. But I want to go back. I want to go back to James Spencer. Many of you know the name Miss Isabel Cunningham, Ms. Isabel Shipley Cunningham. She and Mrs. Irene Hepburn were very good friends. And in the early 2000s, my uncle was starting to tell me about my great-great-grandfather. We had always heard things about James Spencer and about my grandmother's cousin, Matthew Henson, and we didn't see any value in it because it wasn't written in the books. We heard about George Washington Carver because he invented the peanut, not understanding that he had over 400 other inventions. It is up to us to find our past to pass on to the future. Because if we do not, we will be forgotten. I'm going to go back to my great-great-grandfather, James Spencer. We talked about that today because I stand on his shoulders. I have written this transcript. It's been copywritten now since 2008. And just past fall, Viv said, you need to update that. So the next project that Vivian would have before anyone asked her to do anything, she's going to do the final edit on my transcript. James Spencer was a free man. And before he died, he had owned over 1,800 acres of land. And what I understood about that, while I couldn't find all the land just in his name, he had land also with his sons and daughters, so signing for them. But understanding James Spencer was in a time where slavery was still rampant. Our country was not going to give it up, even though England had years before. So there had to be a society around him, and it was the United Methodist Church, the white church, Maggie Methodist Church on Mountain Road, that became the mother church to Mount Zion, and to many other churches around the county that had a white superintendent, a white trustee board. And as time went on, it became a black pastor, and then members of the board or trustees were black. But it didn't start out that way. But in every society, you're going to find someone that's going to help those who need the help. So this is nothing new just to Anne Arundel, nothing new just to this country. But James Spencer understood that in order to get what he did get, he had to work together, not only for his family, but for his community. And I want to give a couple of examples before I get into the civil rights era of today. He bought his first tract of land December 26, 1845, from the Smith and Young families. It bordered along Marley Creek. We call that Marley Creek today. There's an island that's called Brewer's Island, which is part of that. When my Aunt Carrie died, Carrie Spencer Turner, she was the one who was kept the taxes and everything up on the land. When she died, man, this attorney was just waiting. And he got that land. It's a new community now. It's a gated community. And that is what it is. But he and 5 other men on 2 separate occasions bought land together. 1871, James Spencer, Mr. Franklin, I think Suskin, and a couple other men bought land in Freetown in District 3, described it down to the stone, where it was located, and why they were buying it. And they bought it for the Negro men and boys to be educated. And what I didn't understand until his will, the first lines of his will, he said the same thing in that as the Masons would say in their pledge. I didn't understand that until I became one. But it was years later that a cousin said to me, was James Spencer a Mason? I said, I don't know. But then I put 2 and 2 together. The land he bought for these children in 1871 with 5 other men, the children were placed to be educated in a place which was their lodge in Freetown. Isn't that amazing? He was a forward-thinking man. They were forward-thinking men. Why? Because it was a closed community. They had to depend on each other. Let's move forward. 1873. There were 5 other men with James Spencer in the area of Elk Ridge. And we know Elk Ridge as being about the airport, right? Elk Ridge began down what we call Sunset Beach and Waterbury. Gambrels, Savannah Park, okay? Elk Ridge. If I would ask you where is Glen Burnie, it's up the road there by Tarjay. Glen Burnie, Anne Arundel County, covered Howard County, Baltimore County, all the way up to the Pennsylvania line. That was all of Anne Arundel County before annexing took place. So we lived in a society where things were broken up, with plantations and things like that. But in this area in 1873, the African Methodist Episcopal Church had land, had buildings, and they were selling it for $900. Okay, that's a lot of money, Who has $900 in their pocket? Don't raise your hand. I may ask you for some. $900 even today is a lot of money. 1877, 4 years later, they sold this land back to the same church they had bought it from. I just had to guesstimate that perhaps the people who owned the land initially were about to lose that land. And if you were in the 1800s understanding the importance of having land, it was so important for this church not to lose that property. They sold it back to the church in 1877 for $1. No profit, no greed. There was a concern there as community trustees that they were possibly going to lose their land, and we can't let that happen. And they didn't. So when I look back now on the things that our families have done over the years and what we talked about this morning in the truck farming era, we had to do it. We had no one else but us. And those good white folk who worked with us, they helped us. A good example, the Shipleys sold land to the Matthews. They were not supposed to do it when they sold it. Because blacks were not supposed to have land sold to them by a white person. Mr. Shipley sold it to the Matthews family, and they kept it hush-hush for all those years. We got to understand it because Mrs. Cunningham, Isabel Shipley Cunningham, shared that information. But she held that close to her breast all those years of not sharing it until the right time. The time had come when this group, the Northern Arundel Cultural Preservation, got formed with Mrs. Irene Hebron, Ted Betty Mack. I don't know who else was involved with that at that time. I'm sure there were other folks. Pat Caldwell. But the time had come. Folks, listen to me. The time has come. The things that are happening right now with the relationship with the county government, Lost Towns Project with John Kelly, is not coincidental. There are no coincidences. Grab this time now. The things that you couldn't say before, that people were afraid to talk about, say it now. Say it now with boldness. Let me say this to you. I was a wimp as a kid. I'm telling you why I'm saying this in a few minutes. A cousin named Linda White. I hit her and ran off the bus. I got to tell you this. She was in the audience the other day, Pat. We talked, right? And I didn't have time to tell the story. And she said, Anthony Spencer, I'm going to get you. I said, no, you're not. And I ran, right? So Linda comes to my house, and she said, Miss Rosie, can Anthony come out and play? Mama said, sure. She said, go outside and play with Linda. I said, I ain't going outside and play with Linda. Mama walked in the back room. Got to the second step, and I said, mwah! So look, my teeth were not loose before this. Then she knocked my teeth out. So I went in the bedroom, didn't have dinner that night, okay? Next morning, Mama said, so the tooth fairy came. I said, you don't know. But as I grew older, I got tired. I was an object for guys to pick on because I wouldn't fight back. Until one day at vacation Bible school with my cousin, was very intelligent, and he wouldn't impress the bad boys that he can pick on Anthony Spencer. I was a target, right? And so I said, nope, I ain't gonna fight him. My cousin Bruce turned and said, you tell Tony, if he doesn't come around here and fight this person, I'm gonna kick his butt. Okay, fine. You're gonna get your butt kicked, right? Is it gonna be by the big person or the small one? It's gonna be by the small one. I was so humiliated from that experience that I beat the guy so bad they had to pull me off of him. Why did I tell you that? We live in a society where people don't assume that you're going to stand up for certain things. We have to stand up for certain things, which brings me to the civil rights era. If I were to mention a couple names to you, December 25th, 1951, and say a husband and wife team named Harry and Harriet Moore. Would anyone know those names? They were the first African-American couple killed during the civil rights era in a place called Mims, Florida. But you don't hear that because they didn't really push themselves to be the limelight. But they did what they had to do. They started the NAACP in their county in Florida. And their daughter, for years, fought for justice for the death of their parents, and she finally got it. But she didn't let it go. She didn't let it go. 1955, Emmett Till, you've heard he was a 14-year-old boy, killed because he said something to a white girl. Medgar Evers, you've heard thoughts from Medgar Evers. Malcolm X, of course you've heard of Martin Luther King. But do you understand how many martyrs went before me? I called my grandfather and Uncle Tom because he was always shaking hands with somebody white. I didn't understand what he had grown through, what he had lived through, how the men in our community had to protect the community. He was Spencer, here's Marlin Neck Road. Here's Spencer Road, and back in the day, it was a horseshoe around to Howard Road. And I'm gonna get to Howard in a second. We had to know who was coming in the community, who was going out, who was coming through the back road from Freetown, and who was coming in to Spencer or Howard Roads. It was the cost of living where we lived in the times we lived. So I'm going to move now to, I had heard this already, and Vivian knows it, to 1963, September, and I'm going to Marlin Junior High School. We're walking to school. My cousins, Eric Turner, 10th grade, Bruce Turner's brother, 9th grade, Wayne Demi, 8th grade, I'm in the 7th grade. And I didn't grow fast, I was a shrimp. And so I was playing tenor saxophone in the school band. So Bruce would carry my saxophone case for me. So we're walking, he says, Tony, whatever you do, don't let nobody call you a nigger. I said, why not, man? What's a nigger? In our community, that word wasn't spoken. Our families had dignity. It wasn't spoken. Didn't understand it. They laughed at me, but didn't explain the meaning of the word. Okay, we get in school. A young girl named Diana was putting makeup on, and she stole the makeup from home. Shouldn't have had it, but she's going to put it on. So this one guy named Freddie Bezzaretti turns around and calls her a clown. The entire class laughs. It's funny. She couldn't hurt anyone else except for me. She turned around and said, nigger. I still didn't know what it meant. But no one told me what it meant. But between the 7th and 9th grades, my cousin taught me it was us and them. I became hard-hearted, cold, and I didn't like white folk. So I'm working at Gibson Island as a lawn boy. I told you earlier that I couldn't wait to get away from farming. So I started cutting grass down in Gibson Island. And a gentleman who lived on the golf, right across from the golf course, while I'm cutting grass, came up and said one day, he said, Tony, I'm going to take you out of here one day and teach you how to play golf. And because of my hard heart, I said, no, that's all right. Okay. 2 years later, I'm working for a guy named Mr. Robert Hoffman, World War I veteran, pilot, great man, one of the vice presidents of Kodak. He lives on the lakeside. Come on one day, he said, Tony, I'm going to take you out here, and I'm going to teach you how to sail. And you know the answer. I said, nah, that's all right. And you know why? What are men my age doing today? They're playing golf and they're sailing. So if you're going to teach our children anything, teach them, don't look at the gift giver, look at the gift. Because it's not going to always come in a package that is nice and neat and it's from someone you know. Teach our kids to be vigilant because the things that people are saying, sometimes it may be harsh. My father was harsh. He would say things to you and you couldn't figure it out. He just said to me, boy, your problem is you don't have no mother wit. I said, yeah, another cousin. Who is mother wit? Wisdom. But he didn't take the time to share that with me. I'm supposed to just know it. Didn't know it. Okay? Now, here comes, I'm recording for a band called Trey and the Diamonds. I'm in the 9th grade at Marlin Junior High School. It made me a star. Recorded the song. It never came out, but I was a recording artist. Okay? So, Carl Contrino, his father, Angelo, and his brother, Angelo, Barry Stevens, and Bob Brown. These are all white guys who played with the band. And they protected me like I was their younger brother, like I was their son. And I started to understand something there. You know what? This thing ain't always about color. What my cousins told me was limited because they were limited in their understanding about what life was at that point. We were all teenagers. But I started understanding that after elementary, Mr. Cecil Martin came to my science class and said, is Tony Spencer in the room? Mr. Garvin said, he's sitting right there. He said, Mr. Williams said you would be an excellent saxophone player. Saxophone player? I have played trumpet, baritone, tuba, sousaphone, and French horn. How am I going to play a saxophone? What I didn't understand for years, until years later, is that what the teacher saw in me was an ability to adapt, to change, to grow. And I didn't understand that about myself. And I'm an introvert. It may be hard to understand, but I am an introvert. And singing and writing poetry and painting, those things make me appear to be an extrovert, but I'm not. I could be at a party in the car just by myself and be fine. But I know I have to interact because society is not going to look at you as you're sitting back in the corner by yourself. You have to interact. I'm going to move forward again to the Marine Corps. It's late January. I'm a machine gunner. And we're doing our last day of training for qualification. But 3 nights before, I wrote a letter home to my wife, and I wrote a poem. How much time do I have? Oh, mercy, really? Let me recite this poem for a second, and I'll tell you the story. If I'm gone before the day is done, let it be known I did not run. For only the living who can say the man, the woman, the soldier, the Marine was good. Yes, it's sad when you hear the one you loved so dear is gone forevermore. Not for the wrong he's done, simply because another soul was there with a gun. I'll never trust the word safe as long as the gunner's eyes are placed in a position that means he will kill any living being. So while my mind is searching through and my heart is pleading too, some poor soul's life is on the line, paying for freedom is life defined. It sounds very heroic, doesn't it? I wrote that 3 days before I was going to commit suicide. So, Staff Sergeant Early comes out. We're in front of the mess hall. 13 of you have been selected for Presidential Honor Guard duty. You're not going in the field today. You're going to be kept back and briefed on what this is about. So I never touched a machine gun that day. My plan was to jump in front of someone's gun. Because here, I had no worth. Okay, fast forward, get past that. My wife saves that poem, and that is what helped me continue writing, because she saved that poem. And I read it after I got stationed in D.C. as an honor guard for President Nixon. My last 19 months, I was stationed in South in the Annapolis Marine Barracks. And 2 of us had been chosen to go through a LESEP program. It's an acronym for enlisted men being sent to a 4-year college to become officers. Listen, I had nothing to compare life to except for Spencer and Howard Road. And by this time, okay, I had a girlfriend, now I had a wife. She was going to have twins, and I'm still naive. I didn't understand my value still. I said no. Teach your children the value early. So they won't have to guess at it or let someone else give them a value later on. Okay, a lot of that's been going on and it's still going on. There are a lot of predators out there in different areas. It's not just sex, it's drugs, it's other things. But a person who sells drugs, I have a cousin man, he is so good at this. He stopped selling drugs, but he still is a street, we just call him street end. I'm gonna leave it alone. We have people who are out to destroy your family because they're jealous of you and your family. They can't be you, so I'm going to destroy you. The worst thing that they could have done for me was send me to the Marine Corps. I went in, naive, came out a bear. I would go to guys. I want them to pick on me. Because at that time, I wanted to hurt them, but that was still not the answer. The answer was showing them that you've grown past that. So we have a lot of education to do with our families, growing past what someone has done to you. You have bigger things to do. Because as long as you're mad at them, hold on, I can't go forward. And each time they see me, they can just do something with their head. I can't go forward. Thanks. That's my cousin. So we have a lot to learn about civil rights. We have a lot to learn about equal rights. We have to learn about ourselves. But you ever hear this song in the scripture that says, to do unto others as you would have others do unto you? And I didn't get that until I heard the greatest song of all when George Benson sang it. You can't love somebody else unless you love yourself. But we were taught in a way by a family that believed that you had to do for others. Let yourself go and do for others. And my mother was great for that, and my younger sister, but they didn't understand the balance of that. So the balance of everything that we talked about today, we're being taught, is that the balance is, if you can't do it for yourself, how can you effectively do it for somebody else? How can you? In high school, when Dr. King was killed, well, before Dr. King was killed, in 1966, there was a teacher named Mr. Bright. Anyone go to Old Mill or Northeast? You know the name Mr. Bright? Okay. Mr. Bright waited until the principal left. The principal was going for a conference for a week or so, and he brought in the leader from the Black Panthers to Northeast High School. And look, it was a great education because they've had senators from Annapolis come in, spoken was no problem. But when the Black Panthers came in, they were dressed in their black, the boots, blouse, shoes, shine, tammies on the left-hand side. It was one of the greatest educations we had. We had, talking oral history, we had the actual history right there because we heard the truth about the Black Panthers. They were not terrorists. They were people in the community trying to protect their families from the police and starting daycares and feeding kids who didn't have 3 meals a day. So it's important for us to learn the truth if we're going to hear a story, because we can easily say one word or leave a word out and change the concept of a conversation or a person's reputation. So here comes the weekend after Martin Luther King was killed. And there was a teacher named Mr. Browner, forward-thinking man. He taught economics, and he brought black and white leaders in the school, those he thought were leaders, and had us talk to ward off a riot. It is one of the best things he could have done because I learned who my friends were. I learned who the weak people were, behind the scenes starting trash, but then when it comes to the table to talk, they want to hide. I didn't realize how much that was preparing me for where I am today, and where I've been in the fire service, and where I've been in the mayor's office. Mr. Browner helped prepare me because he put me in a place. He saw potential where I could grow and be helpful to the school system, and not just that day, but for years to come, because people would talk about what we did at Northeast High School to ward off a riot. Move forward again. Yes, okay, now that was before the Marine Corps. I'm out of the Marine Corps now, and I'm working for a Broadwater Boat Company. It's down in Mayo and Cars Wharf Road. It's a company for a poor man. You couldn't afford Chris Craft, but you could afford a Broadwater. So this guy named Mr. Ritchie had this company. They were nice boats, the wooden boats were. But this one particular year, and it had to happen in 1973, the fall I started working there, he got a defective shipment of marine plywood. Every new boat he built sunk. He did great with maintenance and all that, but every boat sunk. But here's another area where I've learned a skill. I could build a boat, a powered boat. The only thing I couldn't do, I never put a motor in, I could not put a depth finder or a transducer. Everything on the outside of the boat, interior, I did. But they had no benefits. So during this time, of course, the energy crunch hit in '73, and people had, lined up in lines for gas. But here comes my cousin, a friend named Dickie also in Annapolis. Dickie also. He said, man, look, I'm in the fire department. I think they're gonna hire next spring. Put the application in. So I did. Okay. Got into fire school that September. They asked me to be the chair of the Black Firefighters Association. And that's where I understood that you have to negotiate with conversation to get things done. And just because I couldn't get black firefighters hired when the time came, I could get white females hired because they were also a minority. So I retired from the fire department after 23 years. I was a paramedic. I was the first nationally certified fire inspector, first black paramedic. I went back years later in 2010, became the first certified public information officer. And I kept wondering, why am I constantly going back to this department to get punished? I love the fire service. I did. Along with being in the fire service, I later 5 years on the school board. I worked very closely in some of the arts committees around the county, also around the state. And then I'm realizing that now I'm 66, and what am I doing now? I'm working again with the arts community and the things I used to do before. There's a reason for your training when you're young. You may not get the answer, but there's a reason for it. I don't think I would have met Ted and Betty this way if I had not been prepared. And if I did meet them now and had not been prepared then, I wouldn't have understood the value that they bring to this county, to this state, and what they do for the arts and for history. My wife, Vivian. Brother, is that a leather jacket?
Yes.
Yeah, and so one day I was on the school board, and I'm going to buy me some leather pants. I was 231 at the time. Vivian said, Anthony. When she says Anthony, there's something going to happen, right? She said, honey, you can't wear no leather pants. Broke my heart! But she told me the truth. And if you can do nothing else for folks, tell the truth. The truth doesn't change. Okay. What other incidents can I show you? Being on the school board, I realized that was not just a place to be. God called you to certain places, and you have to understand that and say yes and move. And so being on the school board, I helped some things with some things that people wouldn't pay attention to. For instance, Christians, we get all these holidays. But the Jews had to take their own holidays, their own time. So I voted for the holiday in September, and had to embarrass the board in front of the public for them to say yes. But had I not said that, no one else would say it. You can't always be popular, but you can lead. And I would encourage everyone here, you have your own ways of leading. Use those opportunities, because people need to hear your voice. I met John Kelly's son last Sunday at Anne Arundel Community College. Vivian had written a play, the Northern Arundel Cultural Preservation Society had sponsored it, and Anne Arundel Community College. And my exhibit was right after that show last Sunday. And so John he'd been talking about his son to me, and he introduced me to his son. John, check this out. I learned something from your son that day. So folks in this room, please hear this. Because you were older doesn't mean you can't learn. Be open to learning. My battalion chief told me one time, he's the guy that protected me in the fire service. He said, the day I stopped learning is the day I die. And he said, the more I learn, the more I realize I don't know. So, Lord, have mercy. Boy, think about that for a second. The more you learn, the more you realize you don't know. Don't be afraid to allow people to help you. Miss Isabel told me, Miss Isabel Cunningham, I finished the first draft, I guess, of my transcript for my book. And she said, you talk about your great-great-grandfather, put that in the appendix. I thought about that. Vivian said, no, you're standing on his shoulders. It needs to be in the book before you. And so I had the two chapters in the book. If you look online, my two chapters kind of merged together. They're not complete, but they're merged together. From 2004 with the Anne Arundel Historic Society, and there's 2006. And I had my titles for each one of them. She said, combine them together and call them Upon This Rock. Oof, Lord. She'd already given me the title for the book some years later when I was saying to her, I had written about 60 poems, and I written them between 16 and between 1995. So I'm telling her, all these things have stories. They have their own stories. She said, that's because you have new eyes, new vision. I said, God, that's the title of the book. So it's all copywritten. You can't take the title. It's mine. But what I've learned along this journey of civil rights is that you have to share. Sometimes you're not going to hear what you want to hear. You're not going to be what you want to be. You're not going to grow the same rate as somebody else. Understand that you ain't that person. It's a reason for that person growing for them. They may have more ability. They may have more discipline. Your discipline may not come until later when you can listen to folks who have wisdom and share things with you. And you still back, that's why that's not happening, because it's not time yet. I'm going to keep going back to this era of civil rights. This time is our time now. And I'm saying ours in this room. Collectively as a group, not as white or black, as a group of people. Don't cry, man. I got a handkerchief. You all right? All right. I am blessed to be here. There's so much to talk about the civil rights era, but also so much I've learned from folk. And I realized along with learning, now you have a responsibility of sharing. You're not an island on a house unto yourself. You're in a place because God placed you there for a reason, for a season. Sometimes you're going to be there. Sometimes it's not going to be easy, but you got to be there. People you never thought you'd meet, you got to be there. Leadership Anne Arundel, second class in 94, 95. People, doctors, plastic surgeons, attorneys, lawyers, teachers, people I never would have met. I was placed there for that year for a reason, and we are still friends. It's a reason. What's the guy's name? Freeman Herbalski. I was on the school boards, my first national conference, and my responsibility was to walk him to the 3 places he had to speak and be out of there to be at the airport by a certain time. And during that short period of time, I'm sharing what I'm doing, and he's sharing what he's doing. Okay, that was it. 2 years later, my niece says, Kara's in Bowie. She's in the last year of high school, but her first semester of Bowie, and we just can't afford it. And she's teaching last year's students physics. This girl was just off the hook. I said, look, she doesn't belong there. Let me make a phone call. I didn't make a phone call. I typed to Freeman Herbalski. He said, have her to come into this office right here and talk to this person. So I'm thinking, she's going to get a partial scholarship. She got a full ride. So understand something, how you present yourself at times, who you talk with, what's going to happen for you may not happen at that time, but the time will come, well, it probably will happen. Be ready for it. My fire chief said, you get your education, and when opportunity comes about, you be prepared. We're here to understand why we must be a part of taking things forward. People can't know your stories unless you tell them. Some of them are not beautiful at all. Some of our families came about because of rapes. It's still our story. Tell the story anyway. Some of us came here, we came here because we want to be here. If we could go someplace else, we go. But you're here now. Understand you're part of the landscape. You have to help change history. If it wasn't right, what are you doing to help change it? Got to be a part of it. So the civil rights era for me, and let me hear this folks, from me. I don't see us in integration. I see us in desegregation. Now, why did I say that? Integration is when people from the start says, welcome, we're going to be on this map with all these colors together. Desegregation says, well, if you must come in, but I still don't want you. And we've had the experience. We've all seen it, black or white. And understand something. Whether you're black or white or whatever color, you've taught your children the truth. And the children believe you, mom and dad, that everyone's equal. But then the child steps outside of their house and brings back somebody that doesn't look like them. And you said, ew, no. And your child rebels. But you said, mom, but you said, dad. They had to tell you that. Because you were protected by that family, but now you're learning the truth. So now the things that you didn't want to touch before, that you wouldn't breathe on before, is before you. And you have to understand, if one of your children accept this, they're part of you. If they marry that person, they're part of you. If they have children by that person, they're part of you. Whether I like it or not, I'm 5% English, I'm 60% Irish, I'm 1% Iberian Peninsula, I'm 13% white. Can't change it. It is what it is. But what we have is the opportunity now to grow in a manner in a short period of time that we couldn't have unless we came together like this. How many remember when the computer came out? And they were saying that it's going to be 10 years, maybe, before we get this done. 2 years later, what they were saying would take 10 years was done. I was in the fire service for 23 years. I belonged to the International Association of Professional Black Firefighters. And during our conferences, we were talking about how the influx of different nationalities will come to this area. Well, half of them are already here. California had over 130 some nationalities. Now, if you didn't do well with just treating your black and white, male and female citizens right when you had the opportunity, when you should have, what are you going to do with 135 other countries? You see it. They don't want to accept it. They're here. And folks, it is what it is. Civil rights is not going to leave. Equal rights need to be embraced because we all are affected by it. And if you don't like it, at least try to understand it. Look, I didn't like the fact that my father was bald-headed. And I laughed at him and said, ha ha, Daddy, you're bald-headed. He didn't get mad. He said, live long enough. What the hell is that, live long enough? Well, I understand now. He didn't explain it to me, but he knew in time I would find out. Well, I did. Now, I'm a good little person right here, right now. And first wife and I were pregnant before we got married. And so I went to my father. He was out in the front yard panning fast, had a trowel, bent over like this, making a hole, put a plant in, making a hole. I said, Dad, you're gonna be a grandfather. He said, well, you can't have your cake and eat it too. Okay, so go back a few months later, and we decided to get married, right? I got drafted to go in the Army, but I chose the Marine Corps because Vietnam was not a war, it was conflict. And so I go to my father. He's outside smoking a cigar, watch my uncle work on a car. Hey, Dad, we're gonna get married. He stopped smoking a cigar, put it down, he said, just because she make you happy in bed, doesn't mean she gonna make you a good wife. I was furious at this point, right? So then he goes with us, and Marjorie Holt was a clerk of the court at the time, and we had to get a license. It cost $3 to get the license. $3. And so he said, it's gonna cost you $3 to get into this and $3,000 to get out. But the thing is, old folk had their way of telling you the truth. And sometimes you had to figure it out on your own, okay? And so life has lessons. We have lessons to learn about each other. And if we can embrace that, if we can understand that the time we have right now is to learn more about your cousins you just realize you have, okay? Do it. Because someone coming behind you needs to know. My children, unless I tell them, would not know about James Spencer or about Matthew Henson's father and my great-grandfather being first cousins. My great-great-grandfather being first cousin. So it has to be someone in your family to pass it on to. If you can find one person who becomes interested, Yvette, Tasha is so on it.
Yes, she is.
My gracious, that's her niece and my cousin. She is so on it. Find someone in your family to start passing this down to because they need to hear it. And if they get just the understanding of researching it, if they have no information, research it. So now I can give Jane's name to him, I can give John's name to him, I can get Heather's name to him, I can get Ted and Betty's, I can give Vivian. What's your name again? Stick around long enough, I'm gonna give them your name too. Yes. Okay. I could talk about civil rights for a long time. Do you have any questions for me? Okay.
Did you say Matthew Henson,
Matthew Henson.
the explorer?
The Explorer.
Beautiful book by Dr. Coulter about Matthew Henson.
Is anyone related to Matthew Henson in here besides me? Well, of course you two would be. You related to me. Okay, here's another tidbit for you. My cousin is named Deanie Henson. She lives in the area called Brownswood in Annapolis. And she and her family has done the research. Here's something else for you. Uncle Tom's cabin, Uzziah Henson, your cousin. Now, here's one to blow you away. There's part of the family of, who do you play as a single one-woman show?
Harry Tubman.
Harry Tubman. Todd in there too. Okay? They talk about the first time Spencers came to this country. It was 16-something. It was James, Herbert, and I want to say Wilbur. But they all went in different directions. You know, we know how our society is. Things have happened. We're probably more related in here than we know. Not just black folk. We're Talk long enough, especially if you're Irish and if you're English, if you're from the Middle East. Lord have mercy, we are tied together. So we're tied together. I pray that our ties will be cords that cannot be broken. Because we're on a journey, and this journey must be completed. We're in that part that we have to put this together and this become a secondary route of information. I planted a shrub in the front yard, and I thought it could be nothing else to, no big thing to put it up. So I go to the smallest one first. I said, I'll do this today. It took me 4 hours to get this thing up. The next day, the other one's that size. I took a chainsaw, and it had multiple roots because it touched the ground and rerooted. What we're doing today is rerouting. Let's make sure that we fertilize it, we nurture it, we water it, we give it plenty of sunshine. We are the sunshine. And let's give it to our children, our families, so they can move on. Thank you for listening.